Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Fitness Friday Posi-TIPS with Rachelle. Folks, this is it. This is the final episode in this important series on what's your problem. What's your problem? And throughout this series, I talked about, just shared initially on the first episode, just some valuable lessons that I learned as a graduate student at Northwestern University in Chicago. And so I essentially received the inspiration for this entire series when I was on the train to Chicago here from Detroit last May for a 2-day alumni meeting. And I just was reflecting on my journey and just Northwestern and all of that, as I often do when I go back to campus. And I just really said, I need to do an episode just on, what's your problem, and just highlighting and sharing with you just the value of that important lesson of making sure that we define problems correctly. I shared, several lessons, the importance of the case studies, that we learned a case study method of learning and teaching, and I actually write my own case studies and often share them with you sometimes, abbreviated versions, but just making sure that we're focusing on problems, the right problems. It's easy to attack symptoms and address symptoms, but oftentimes when we do that, certainly more often than not, the problem is just going to remain. So it's so important that we really get off on the right foot by making sure we address the right problem. And also, another great lesson that I share with you, just the importance of exposure, and I mentioned the whole ego deflation period that I went through. And actually many folks, go through the same thing, where you essentially, kind of look around and it, just the humility, with the humility that's required, recognize that, what? Everyone in this classroom is just as smart, just as talented, whatever, just as competitive and ambitious and all of that. So it was the ego deflation period, my first couple of weeks. And then if you've been in that situation, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I also utilize that lesson to expose you, because that exposure is good to other people. That's why, as I mentioned, I would like to share what's going on in other facilities, what other folks are doing. Leadership lessons, leadership highlights, leadership best practices, all of that, because I want you to be exposed, because it's so easy in life to get tunnel vision and think that you and your leadership team are just the absolute best thing since sliced bread, or your facility is the best thing since sliced bread. And then you hear some of what I talk about in these episodes and it causes you to think. And that's exactly why I do it. So we can all develop a level of humility to say, well, hold on. What's going on out there? Let me be open. Is the fitness industry and the fitness market passing me by? What can I do? So I like to expose you to really learn this valuable lesson of knowing what's going on in the market. But folks, I just had to actually refer back to something that I highlighted last week really quickly, because I forgot. I ended the episode with this, and I wanted to make sure to come back to it because I forgot one of the points that I was going to tell you. So I had to write myself a note. So at the end of the last episode, I highlighted, my time in Minneapolis and how I had done some leadership development, and the actual course that I took at Hennepin Community College. Took several classes there, and it was wonderful. But this was the Essential Executive Series, Persuasion and Influence. And so it's so ironic that I ended up, obviously going into sales. And so what I highlighted last time, it was the DISC profile, and talked about how important it is when we're thinking about, who's on the bus, or the right people on the bus, or the right people in the right seats, and all of that. So the DISC profile, D-I-S-C profile, if you're not familiar with it, certainly Google it, look it up, do your homework and research, but very popular assessment tool. And it's interesting, again, this was done at the beginning of my career, and so you can see, as I highlighted, I'm a high D. And really quickly, for those who may have missed last episode, that stands for, the DISC, so dominance, influence, cautiousness or compliance, and steadiness. And so the dominance, remember, a high D may want authority, challenges, prestige, freedom, varied activities, growth assignments, bottom line approach, opportunity for advancement. So true, and certainly described me to a T. And when I kind of cracked up when I'm always talking about freedom and my love for freedom, and not being, I don't like to be tied down. And I literally, again, looking back at this, again, just refreshingly looking at this, and obviously when I went into sales, they did similar profiles, and so of course the dominant personality assessment results certainly remained. But it's so funny when I, go back to Louisiana and I go on base, Farsight Air Force Base, And I remember those years that I spent working at AFES, the Army and Air Force Exchange Service. And so started off there working at Royal Chopsticks. So yes, I worked in a Chinese restaurant in the food court. Wonderful experience. And then I actually got inside. I left the food court and actually went inside the Barksdale Air Force Base main exchange, which is a military department store, just to put it quickly and simply. And so I initially hired on as a cashier. So I was a cashier, but one thing I realized, I was a cashier and then applied for the greeter position. So yes, I was a greeter for about a good two and a half years. Wonderful, love that. It was certainly a much better fit. But the cashier, and one thing that always used to happen to me, and again, and now looking back, I understand myself better. I just have this insight now, just self-awareness now, certainly that I didn't have then. But when I was a cashier, it was I swear, it had to at least be 2 or 3 times a week. I would hear my name getting called over the PA system. Rachelle Smith, please return to your register. Rachelle Smith, please return to your register. Because I would be off in another department, chatting with other employees, helping other customers find stuff, whatever. But again, just looking back, just being in that tight cashier spot, I recognize now, looking back, I can laugh and say, oh, you know what? Well, that explains. I like to be out. I like to be out front. I like to be, on the move. But what I wanted to quickly highlight from last week was, again, the beginning of my career. And so as part of this whole particular course that I took, so strategies for improving my relationships. And this so cracked me up when I saw this. And so it says, okay, from the D, the dominant personality. And what I have highlighted here, it says a little more humility. And what have you heard me say on a few episodes now? I'm really working on my humility. It's been several years, but I'm really, really working on it now. But that cracked me up when I saw that. It's like, it was clear at the beginning of my career. I even saw it, I recognized it then, but just had to share it. Just had to share that just to get you started off on a funny note. But also another great lesson. I love the SWOT analysis. I swear I have brought out the SWOT analysis on so many episodes, but I just think it is something, particularly in the fitness industry, that is often overlooked. It is so important that you be live and breathe in the SWOT analysis, stay on top of what's going on in your market, and that way you are not surprised, particularly when it comes to threats, because these unexpected threats and even expected threats are what cause fitness facilities to close down on a regular basis. But a lot of time, and not even just fitness industry, just businesses in general, companies in general, just these threats are certainly can be detrimental and just kill whatever business enterprise that you're engaged in, or even nonprofit like a YMCA or something like that. I mean, some of them, not all, but some have had their own or having their own struggles. But it's just, again, the threats. Other competitors come in, and then all of a sudden, bam, what are we going to do? We're just not in a strong competitive position. And so when I mentioned threats, just wanted to quickly highlight, and I've talked about, and I'm going to continue this conversation to Jim Collins' Good to Great. Continuing this conversation in this episode to wrap this episode up, again, what are those 3 important points that I often like to highlight? Who's on the bus? Who's on the bus? Think about your facilities, who's on the bus. Number 2, are the right people in the right seats? Number 3, are the wrong people off the bus? Are the wrong people off the bus? So when you think about these 3 points, and as I mentioned in last episode, when I went to, it was actually, no, the episode before that, when I mentioned that I went to the September 28th grand opening of Edge Fitness, one of our latest entrants here in the Metro Detroit market. Edge Fitness, based on the East Coast, and so their sales process is very strong, very strong. I'm not going to go into all of that here on this episode, but I can tell you, just again from a threat standpoint, pulling out the SWOT analysis, it's very tough to compete with an organization with a franchise system that has a solid sales process, because that can be where some of the other sales-driven chains can struggle, is because they don't have the sales processes in place. They will hire a salesperson, and this happens also in the private side too as well. Hire an account manager or salesperson, membership advisor, membership representative, and that person has had no sales training. And so they're basically thrown into that role and told, sell some memberships if you want to keep your job. And hence you have all of these complaints about sales pressure and questionable tactics and a lack of ethics in terms of some membership signups and membership cancellations and all of that. We won't get into all of that, but this is a great example, and I highlighted Anna Mondrusov, who I initially met at the Crunch Fitness in Farmington Hills. She was part of that launch team, and she's now at Edge Fitness. She's with Edge Fitness, and I just know that, I mean, that was a big loss for Crunch, a big loss for Crunch, and I think there's a lesson in that from an HR standpoint. Again, who's on the bus, and you want to keep your good people. You know, I'm always harping on people and the right people on the bus, and it's like when you get some right people. I mean, with all due respect to Crunch, I don't know, you know, the circumstances behind that, but I just recognize, because here you have someone that is well trained from a sales perspective. Have someone that's well trained and that has experience with a fitness franchise launch in a major market. And so for that person to walk away, you know, to a competitor with that type of knowledge, with that type of intelligence, you know, institutional intelligence or organizational intelligence, franchise intelligence, to be able to walk away, you know, with a competitor, walk away to a competitor with all of that information. And I smiled when I saw this email that I got from her on Saturday. So this last Saturday at 5:53, title of the message, the Edge Fitness Club's open house, something Crunch does as well. Very, very big on open house. So you can see here, it says, join us for our 31st anniversary party. So it's important to know that while the Edge Fitness Clubs, yeah, they have a national expansion, not very aggressive, but they have a national expansion. Just entered the Michigan market, you know, on that grand opening on September 28th of this year. But they've been around a long time, 31 years. I mean, and the same thing was true with Crunch, and I can see the similarities in this email and what they did in terms of launching Crunch, that Farmington Hills location. A lot of the same themes. But anyway, all-day event, Monday, October 28th. So they're having this party open to the public, free in-body assessments, outdoor Zumba, contest raffles, 20% off supplements, 50% off personal training. So listen to this copy here really quickly. We might be a new club, again, thinking in the metro market. The Edge Fitness Clubs is definitely not new to the fitness industry. Help us celebrate our 31st anniversary by joining us Monday, October 28th for an open house. Stop in for a workout on us, take a class, sample a shake from our Edge Cafe, and get the best deal on our memberships. We are this excited to be in Farmington Hills and celebrating 31 years in the business. Come join the fun. And so you see a picture of it looks like a small group fitness class, and you can see the Farmington Hills, Michigan in the background. I actually, when I posted pictures from that grand opening, I actually took a picture of that, the Farmington Hills Edge Fitness there in the background. RSVP to attend a class. Call us or just email me back the time that you will be coming for a workout. And so you have all of that, you know, some class examples here. Edge Fitness Club, Anna Mondrusov, who's now, you know, went from front desk and she's now a sales manager. But she is definitely, you know, in the right seat. I mean, that sales role is a very good fit for her. I would hire her in a heartbeat. You know, that's always a test. Like, would you recommend, you know, someone else hire her? Absolutely. Would you hire them yourself? Absolutely. And I tell you this as someone with a sales background and sales training, she is exceptional. And so when you think about, and this is something you always hear me talk about from a leadership perspective, I always want to know who's running the show, who's in what role, who's in what seat. Because her being in that sales manager role and having these membership advisors under her in that particular market, and that's something that Crunch did, and when they launched in the market, and you know, and continue to do, hire fitness veterans, hire fitness industry veterans, and the same thing as Edge Fitness. So you're getting people that are already seasoned in experience, that are certainly have an interest and a passion for fitness, and she certainly does. And you're having these people, you know, launch these particular franchise chains in this market, and it is potent. It is potent. It is strong from a competitive standpoint. So stay on top of that, but also recognize when you've got good people, yo, do your best to hang on to them, because you don't want them going to a competitor. You just don't want them leaving, because you know it could be a lot of certainly institutional intelligence that they're walking away, competitive intelligence. And you don't want that to happen. And you want the best people working for you. You want the best people working for you. But just had to share that, folks. And I wanted to quickly give you a few examples here. We're talking about having the right people on the bus, having the right people in the right seats. And so when you think about, again, this is the Sports Illustrated. This was a double issue. Of course, you see Dak Prescott. He's not the focus, but September 23rd through the 30th. So this was a double issue here of Sports Illustrated. And so wanted to highlight something here, and that is, and this episode is historic. This episode is historic. And you want to know why. Actually, a couple of different reasons why. One of them will be towards the end of the episode, but right now I have to share that this is the first time in 5 years of Posi-TIPS and fitness Posi-TIPS. Obviously, two different types of positive inspiration that I provide on these episodes. This is the first time I have ever had the opportunity to highlight LSU, the New Orleans Saints, and the New Orleans Pelicans in the same episode. So this is great. This is really an exciting moment, an exciting time. And I mentioned from that live episode I did outside of the Planet Fitness on Uri Drive in Shreveport, back in September. That was September 11th when I did that episode. But I highlighted there's a lot of excitement in the state of Louisiana for the college and certainly LSU being the college team, but the New Orleans Saints and the Pelicans. All right, so there's just a lot of excitement, and I just had to highlight something, and I've been hanging on to this one for a while now. But again, the right people on the bus, and so when you think about the right people in the right seat, so it talks about just how LSU has really had a strong season so far, because they've changed some things up, and it talks about embracing with Coach Orgeron, embracing the spread offense. They've made some changes into their schemes, the offensive schemes, and the defensive side of the ball is certainly strong. But Ross Dellinger had this article entitled "Spread the Word," and just quickly, can't get into all of this at the in the interest of time. After years of pounded out ground-based attack, LSU has gotten with the times, bringing in a low-level NFL assistant and a transfer quarterback to finally install the spread offense. Folks in Baton Rouge might not recognize the new attack, but with the Tigers sitting at number 4, they certainly don't mind it. All right, and certainly since this was published, they've moved up to number 2, and so just a lot of excitement around LSU this season. But how does this relate to the whole good to great, the whole good to great points that I like to make? And that is, back when Les Miles spent a lot of years at LSU, won a national championship. And so when they let him go, it was controversial because, you just have, a longtime coach who obviously had experienced, great success at certain points of his tenure with the team. And so when he was let go, it was just really controversial. And, there could be a sense of loyalty, and you just like, this person's been here forever and they've done some good things. And I want you to think in terms of your leadership and the folks on your team. And how often sometimes, we can hang on to people just out of, this could be really hard, and they've been with me so long, and whatever this and that. But the truth of the matter is, and then of course there was the other side of that coin of people who were like, we need a change, we got to do some things differently. And I admit, even myself, I was kind of one of those nostalgic people of, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're letting let's go. But anyway, Coach Orgeron has done a fantastic job stepping into that role. But the biggest thing is Orgeron has been open. Les Miles, with all due respect to him, and certainly hope he does extremely well at Kansas. I've highlighted him a number of times this year on various episodes, and his courage and moving forward. But, I recognize now that change was needed. They needed someone that was going to be open, that was going to be willing, like this article pointed out, that was willing to get with the times, so to speak here, to recognize that things had changed, things had shifted. That up the middle running the ball, back from, many years ago, that whole scheme has changed. That's considered outdated. So a change was necessary. And so when you think about that, yes, they've got Joe Burrow doing a fantastic job as a quarterback. Got a transfer in. LSU has struggled, again, having the right people in the right seat. They've struggled with that quarterback role for years. They needed a solid quarterback. So again, having the right person in the right seat. So that quarterback is essentially the field general. All right, and so if you don't have the right person in that seat, again, comparably drawing some parallels here, you don't have the right general manager in that seat, there's going to be some problems. There's going to be some problems. There's going to be some struggles, and I think LSU, we're just so proud of them, but just most importantly from a leadership perspective, recognizing that sometimes change is necessary. Sometimes, a manager or leader needs to move on, and so I just wanted to highlight that really quickly. Also, the New Orleans Saints example I wanted to highlight for you. This is just so cool, folks. How awesome is that? You got, here we go. Just, gotta love it. So another Sports Illustrated article here. I'm looking. Oh goodness, see, this is hard. Okay, so here we go. So this one is very, very recent. So you can see here, this is the LA Clippers. Another great example here, just to quickly digress before I move on in here into the Saints and Teddy Bridgewater. But another example, who's on your bus? So the LA Clippers struggled for a long, long time, but now they have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Okay, we know how successful he was, and the Toronto Raptors experienced, had a championship or achieved the championship last year in the NBA. So hey, there's a reinvigoration now of the LA Clippers. And let me quickly stay on this theme here because don't want to skip over to New Orleans because you can see I have a little sticky thing. I wanted to highlight this one as well. So very quickly. So the start of something big. Here you go. You see them again quickly. A dedicated back air front office hired Paul George and Kawhi Leonard to Los Angeles, where the Clippers are now squarely in the title conversation. But what was once the NBA's most moribund franchise has its sights set even higher. Bam. Who's on the bus? Adding a couple of key players to your team can make all of the difference. And now shifting back on here to the New Orleans Saints. I just didn't want to forget to highlight the Clippers because I intended to highlight them. So what we have, big ups, backups. So this article here talked about, so this was October 21st through the 28th, another double issue. And so this talked about Teddy Bridgewater of the New Orleans Saints. So this past summer, later in the summer, actually highlighted a Sports Illustrated article where they talked about Teddy Bridgewater was obviously the focus of the article, where he had the opportunity. Actually, no, that was a New Orleans Times-Picayune article, pardon me, in case you want to Google that and look that up. But anyway, talked about he had the option to go to, other teams. And he had the potential now, again, with some quarterback injuries, he could have been leading a team, an NFL team by now. But he wanted to stay in New Orleans and have the opportunity to continue to learn, grow, and develop under Drew Brees, future Hall of Famer, just a superstar quarterback. And so, what we didn't recognize, the beginning of the season, Drew Brees got hurt. He hurt his thumb, so he was out for a few weeks with the thumb injury. Teddy Bridgewater had to step up. Same may be true in your instance where, a general manager, assistant manager, or someone else may need to step up and lead in the absence of the general manager or the assistant manager, whatever the case may be. You may have a shift supervisor that may have to fill in and step up. So this was a great, quick snippet here that just talked about how well Teddy Bridgewater was doing, certainly, but he held the ship. He held the ship, the New Orleans Saints ship, steady for the few weeks that he was obviously serving as quarterback. But that's an example. That's an example of leadership. He could have left. He could have left the New Orleans Saints bus and gone to another NFL bus, but he decided to stay, and that's just that's just so rare. It tells you a lot about his character. But he wanted an opportunity to continue to learn and grow. So who's on the bus? He's certainly the right person on the New Orleans Saints bus. He's certainly the right person in the right seat. So wanted to highlight that. Also here, lastly, is I highlight the New Orleans Pelicans. So we've got, and I've been saving this one for a long time, folks, but I knew at some point I was gonna get around to it. So August 1st, Jake Fisher wrote an article here in Sports Illustrated entitled "How David Griffin's Rebuilt the New Orleans Pelicans and His World." After a miserable exit in Cleveland, David Griffin found a new home in New Orleans where he took on the task of rebuilding Gail Benson's Pelicans during the Anthony Davis trade saga. With Phenom, Zion Williamson on board, and a core of veterans hungry for a playoff push, the team down in the Bayou will be one of the most talked about in the NBA this upcoming season. So that's all I'm going to read is this quick snippet here at the top in the interest of time. But a great example, okay? Who's on the bus? All right, so we got a new superstar on the bus, Zion Williamson. So they are selling tickets like crazy to the games, and we know that he's had some injury issues here at the beginning of the season that'll take him out for a little while. But ticket sales have gone up. All right, so you've got apparel sales that have gone up. But just of course not only in New Orleans, but people just all over the country are just so excited. They're saying that Zion Williamson has experienced the same level of buzz, publicity, and interest as LeBron James. Like, he's been kind of the greatest phenomenon since LeBron James in terms of generating all of that buzz and publicity. So when you think about, okay, so a lot of changes have happened in the Pelicans here, in the last year or so. Dave Griffin, came on board. He has past history with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and so just known as an excellent general manager. So there was a lot of excitement just with his coming on board the Pelicans. And then of course the Pelicans won the lottery, and they got the first pick, and Zion Williamson is now on the bus. So you think about, again, having Dave Griffin, the right person in that right seat, that solid seasoned general manager role is now filled by him. All right, great person to have on the New Orleans bus, but great person to have in the right seat. I mean, very well respected in the industry. There was just so much excitement. We're like, oh my gosh, we're getting Dave Griffin, and it's important to know that, the Pelicans aren't, they're not your LA Lakers, they're not your Boston Celtics. I mean, it's a smaller market team. There's not there hasn't historically been a whole lot of interest and excitement and all of that, except when Anthony Davis was drafted to the team in 2012, and so he was a phenom coming out of University of Kentucky. He spent a number of years with the team, and I think this is where that third point of the good to great points that I like to make is, having the wrong person or the wrong people off the bus. All right, earlier this year, Anthony Davis, if you're not familiar with it, you can research it, you can Google it. Anthony Davis, did not want to be on the Pelicans anymore, essentially kind of, demanded a trade, wanted to be off the team. Of course, now he's joined LeBron James with the Lakers. And so you think about that. Here you have this phenomenal player who's done a great job with the team. He's, had his injury issues and stuff over the years, but, the Pelicans were lucky to have him. They were willing to pay him, and they paid him extremely well. But the truth of the matter is, he reached a point where he did not want to be on the bus anymore. He said, hey, I'm trying to win a championship. I want to win a ring, and I can't do it here. And so when you think about that, we draw some parallels here in the modern day workplace. Obviously, the NBA, they've got rules, and again, you're dealing with just gigantic salaries and just all of these type of things that your average fitness facility or workplace won't have. But you can still draw some parallels where you may have this person, and again, out of your own nostalgia and your just attachment and emotions, I don't want them to go. What are we gonna do? How's this place gonna function? All right, you may have a person or people like that. That again, they don't want to be there. They've shown you that they don't want to be there. In some cases, they've tried to resign and all of that. They've kind of showed you that they don't want to. That's no longer where they want to be. But you're hanging on. You're desperate. All right, you just, what are we going to do without you? This place can't make it without you. And I think this is a great example. I mean, with all due respect to Anthony Davis, because again, now he's moved on. He's with LeBron, and but see, the New Orleans, the floor of the New Orleans Pelicans did not fall through. When he left. I mean, it's just really a blessing again that Zion came on board. But in life, you can't make someone stay with you. I mean, yeah, obviously you got contractual obligations that make it tough, particularly with these professional organizations. But if people don't want to be there, if people don't want to work for you, if people don't want to be an employee of your facility or your facilities, you really got to ask yourself, because you end up doing yourself and actually in that person a disservice. Because what you want is highly engaged, motivated, passionate, on-fire employees about you, about your workplace, about your facility or facilities, about your organization, about your franchise, about your corporate chain, whatever the case may be. So please, I just wanted to highlight that. Like I told you, I never get a chance to highlight 3 Louisiana teams, but it just really worked well. But I never have an opportunity to kind of talk about, the wrong person getting off the bus. And of course, Anthony Davis is not wrong. He's not a bad person. He's human. He said, hey, my career aspirations and what I want to do is not going to happen here. So let me go. So when you have an employee or employees that come to you with that, you really gotta, put your heartstrings, you gotta put your heart on the back burner, and just say, okay, realistically, this person doesn't want to be here. What good is this going to do? We want people that want to be here. You want people that want you. You want people that want to work for you. You want to, let me step on some toes here. You want people that want to be in a relationship with you. Ouch. All right. So I'm going to move on from that. I'm going to move on from that, folks, and I'm going to highlight a couple of other, my classic. These are kudos, kudos that I submitted for a couple of folks. I'm going to highlight these. I'm going to shift gears into some more personal stuff, which I've never done on any Posi-TIPS episode, but I told you this episode is historic. So you know me and my case studies, and so I've developed case studies around these, but this is just the actual feedback. I'm going to share a couple of thoughts here. In the interest of time, I never do full case studies on these episodes. And so, leadership, we're talking about, again, keeping this theme, who's on the bus? Are the right people in the right seats? More importantly. So, you know that I'm a healthy volunteer with Michigan Medicine, also known as the University of Michigan Health System. Since my official kickoff date was May 1st of this year. Absolutely loving it. A number of clinical trials. I'm absolutely loving it. But I actually, and you've heard me, I've submitted award recommendations for the Michigan Medicine Making a Difference Award. Submitted to clinical trial coordinators back a few episodes. I read that feedback or their submission, but I did a recent one, and this was actually for a PI, or study principal investigator. And I know that it's just very well deserving. So I submitted this Making a Difference Award recommendation or nomination on October 25th. So sit this online, the web submission form. Just quickly want to read this. I am currently a healthy volunteer in the micromap study. From the first day, I met her as a participant in the predecessor CAR study on May 28, 2019. Dr. Huang has been attentive, professional, and relatable. After entering the room, she makes small talk and sincerely asks how I'm doing. Despite her busy patient obligations during my visits, she stops by and checks in with me and my study progress. I recently had a study visit on October 11th, 2019, while having an upper respiratory sinus infection. The micromap study protocol requests that we visit when we have certain illnesses, such as the one I had. I scheduled that last-minute appointment effortlessly with the staff. Despite not feeling well, it was well worth my time to drive a round trip from Novi to Ann Arbor. So folks, that's about 30 miles each way. I certainly appreciate Dr. Huang's visibility and attentiveness during my study appointments. Despite their busyness, it is always good to see leaders take their responsibilities so seriously. After a successful completion of the CAR study in June, I opted to continue with the subsequent micromap study due to having such a positive experience. It is my absolute pleasure and honor as a volunteer to help move Michigan medicine clinical studies forward. You all make it easy. Keep up the great work. So I want to make a couple of quick points here. Leadership development, all that's what I do. Absolutely love it. But when you think about this from a leadership perspective, yes, obviously she's an MD, you have the right person on the right bus. But you have the right person in the right seat. And what I want to do is, there's a lot of different ways I can go with this, but I do that in a case study, but don't want to do it for this episode. Don't have the time. But when you think about the right person in the right seat, so a PI or principal investigator, these are her two studies. These, the CAR study that I did before, which is essentially an asthma study. So I'm a healthy volunteer. I don't have asthma. So you compare the asthmatics, some testing and things that we do versus me, people like me, the non-asthmatics. You can see what the differences are there. I'm in the control group. I'm a healthy control group member. So she's a principal investigator. These are her studies. So think about that. We may be talking about a general manager, okay? That facility or chain of facility, whatever the case may be, a regional manager, district manager, whatever the case may be. Okay, that may be that person's gym or number of gyms or several different gyms or whatever. All right, that is that person's responsibility. And when you think about her, and why I wanted to point this out is that her visibility, her just showing up, even if it's for 7-8 minutes. How you doing, Rachelle? How's it going? How's LSU? What's going on? They gonna win the championship, just all of that kind of stuff, but just making time to show her face despite working way on the other side of the hospital and seeing patients. All right, yes, patients are certainly a very big obligation, but so are her clinical studies. She's a principal investigator. And I think that is just so important to note. And we can take this up a notch and say, you're talking about, your owners, your people at the top, particularly in a franchise situation or private, a facility situation. The folks way at the top that are running the show truly, or owning the show or running the show. Okay, showing your face, being visible, getting to know people, all right, being relatable, making small talk, very important. From a leadership perspective, very important. Because remember, I had a decision. I completed the CAR study, and I had a decision. When I was at one of the coordinators, asked, hey, Rachelle, do you want to continue this year-long follow-up? I had a decision. I'm busy. I have a lot of stuff to do, whatever this and that. and then again, I got to drive 60 miles round trip to do this. And again, I'm healthy. So I'm truly giving back to medicine. I'm giving back to society because these aren't benefiting me in any way. But I'm positive, I'm passionate about making a difference in the world. So it is about, me doing this. So when I had to make a decision to make, and I had such a positive experience in the car study, why? Because Dr. Wong was there, showed her face, showed that she cared a lot about her study, and that was willing to invest the time to come way on the other side of this massive hospital, okay, and just check in. How's it going? Any new symptoms? Any medications? Any of that? All right, and it's so important. And also from an HR standpoint, from a compliance standpoint, they know they got the right person in the right seat. Because this feedback, when I do the Making a Difference Award, that goes to HR, massive HR team. Because actually, I do know now, and you can research it online, the Making a Difference Award, they get about 17,000 submissions a year. All right, for Michigan Medicine. All right, they've got 26,000 employees, but think about that, 17,000 submissions. All right, so very, very important. Very, very important. But I wanted to recognize her. So when we think about, just a quick example here, Undercover Boss. We think about why that show was so successful and why, people just love it and just gravitate towards it. Okay, why? Because you have these people that are CEOs that are going down at the level of the average employee, stocking, cleaning, driving a distribution bus, logistics, operations, whatever this and that, learning and hearing from people that are doing these jobs on a daily basis. But that visibility, them people, those people actually saying, oh, this is CEO. Obviously, when they find out the CEO, cared enough to come out in the field, to come out to stores, or if the Retro Fitness that CEO did a wonderful job on an episode, check it out if you can. But going to facilities and saying, what's going on? What's happening? What kind of feedback can I get? But that visibility, that leadership visibility is so important. And I got to take a minute, powerhouses in my past, obviously, I don't go back and revisit, old gyms and all that kind of stuff. And that, when I leave a gym, when I cancel a membership, I'm done. All right, but I still give what they, use the vernacular, mad props to the co-founder and the owner of the Novi location, Powerhouse, William Davish. He was visible. He was in that gym from time to time, showing his face, evaluating what's going on, what's the layout, how's this looking, how's the flow, how are people exercising, is this going well? I will always respect him for that. He showed his face. Even as a co-founder, his brother passed away in 1975. As a co-founder in 1975, co-founded that gym in Highland Park, Michigan, right here in Detroit, Metro Detroit. Still, more than 40 years later, was showing his face in there so people could see, members could see, most importantly, employees could see that this co-founder cares. He cares. So really, really take that to heart, folks. And want to quickly move on over here. August 17th, this was a letter that I submitted to corporate. This is a copy of the letter that I submitted to corporate. Advanced Auto Parts. Mailed it to the Store Support Center, 2635 East Millbrook Road, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27604. So, and what I have in it here, RE, Great Service at Farmington Hills, Michigan Store by employee Matt Silvaggi. Want to read it quickly here. Hello, I bought a new Autocraft battery online and picked it up from this store on August 9th, 2019, order number 107-225-130. James, the manager, asked me to go outside and raise my hood in preparation for Matt to install my battery. Matt came outside and cordially greeted me. He politely made small talk and put me at ease. He tested my old battery before removing it and printed out the test report. He explained everything on it. Admittedly, I've had battery check engine light services completed at stores like this before, but this was the first time I ever received a formal test report. I was elated. After confirming a new battery was needed, he installed a new one. He explained the process and everything he did as we went along. He tested the new battery after installation and told me I was good to go. While engaging in small talk, I learned he had a passion for working on cars as well as business finance. He mentioned he had been an Advanced Auto employee for 3 years and floated across different stores in Metro Detroit to help when needed. He was so impressive. When he finished, I walked back inside the store and told the manager what an excellent job he did and to keep him on the payroll because he was a super employee. That young man has a bright future in a couple years when he finishes college. I hope he remains at Advanced Auto in a leadership capacity worthy of his talents and skills. He's a keeper. Best regards, Rachelle Smith. So, typically once or twice a year, obviously not in the fitness industry, but I will write a letter to corporate. You know, for 2018, I actually wrote it for the Fresenius Dialysis Clinic when my dad, you know, was here at the Brighton, Michigan location. So, I mean, just outstanding clinic manager, outstanding staff. I actually read that on the, you know, read the letter that I submitted to corporate in Massachusetts on an episode, and also the vice president, senior vice president of HR actually sent me a note back in the mail saying how grateful and how appreciative she was for that feedback. So I, you know, when it warrants it, I will definitely submit feedback to corporate. You know, the manager, Francis, of our Dollar Tree here in Novi does an exceptional job. I've reached out to corporate, not a letter, but the actual submitting feedback, you know, via web inquiry. Mike, general manager, CVS in Novi, outstanding as well. Have submitted feedback on his behalf. And so, but it takes, when I actually draft up a letter like this, I feel very strongly. So I submitted this letter via web inquiry. So their corporate got it, sent a message. They sent me a message back thanking me for the feedback. But I took it a step further. When I feel extremely strong about, you know, a person, particularly, and I'm always recognizing leadership. So I feel extremely strongly about him, and there's just, I mean, he was a T&D professional stream, training and development. You know, that's what I do. I'm a trainer, and so a dream, a compliance officer, the corporate compliance officer's dream. I mean, he was following it, everything by the book to the T, just fantastic. And I was so happy to be able to write this letter on his behalf. But again, just want to make a few points here. The compliance standpoint. Okay, testing the battery, printing out reports, going over reports with customers. How many times does that happen to you? Or do people just read it, they don't tell you what it says, and they tell you either your battery's fine or you need a new battery. But he went through everything step by step. See, again, that's a compliance issue. Did a fantastic job. Another point is he's a floater. So he's all, I mean, Metro Detroit is huge, like many metropolitan areas. So he's all over these different locations. That shows when you have a floater, when you have someone that is willing to go to different locations, particularly whether it's winter, he's been with them for 3 years, whether it's winter, whether it's, you know, freezing rain, whether it's sunny, whatever the case may be, he is all over this very large city at different locations, filling in where needed. That expresses a level of commitment, to his own job, but also to the organization. When we talk about floaters, and that's why I highlighted Leo, you know, in the Shreveport-Bossier City market of Louisiana, when he's assigned to the Bossier City location, and, you know, right before the new year, he was at the newest Shreveport location filling in. That tells me a lot. When I see somebody that is able to float like that, like, yes, that manager entrusts that person, and I absolutely agree, Leo is a great person to be able to do that. A great fit, but that person's gonna have a sense of loyalty, that person's gonna have a good attitude, and a lot of different things I won't get into, but most importantly, trust. The manager, the leader, the supervisor has to be able to trust that person to go and to do well, but also serve as a positive reflection on him or her. How many folks could you send to float to other locations? You may be a private gym, and just imagine if you had 5 locations. What folks would you feel comfortable sending to other locations? All right, that tells you a lot. Those people that you're willing to send to other locations, folks, you have got yourself one there. I assure you, Leo would make an exceptional trainer. I definitely would. Yeah, he'd make an exceptional trainer. Another person here locally in our Metro Detroit market that would make an exceptional trainer is Devin at the 5 Mile location in Livonia. Exceptionally strong. From, you know, July 2018, every time I've gone in there, he works the overnight shift. He is on it. He is on his A game. He is super attentive on that parking lot. What's going on in that gym? You know, he's a very compliant individual, but also number of times working out. That man has worked the overnight shift, 6 o'clock getting off, working out after his workout. Just exceptional. I think very, very highly of Devin. But so think about that. You know, I'm not going to give any more information there, but, you know, spending more time on that. But, you know, I'm kind of going off in a direction I hadn't planned on. But think about who are your floaters? Who are these people that you know that would, you know, a trainer, you know, you put somebody in a training role, particularly if they're going to different locations, you know, you've got to be able to trust that person. You know, and I've seen some things, you know, obviously, you know, with Leo, and I've seen some things obviously with Devin, you know, long term, very consistent behavior. And that's something, again, from a training perspective, that's something that you want. Somebody that you can send floating. And I just, you know, I literally shook my head after this interaction and said, man, I wish. That would have been such a great episode of Undercover Boss. I mean, I just wish their CEO could have, I don't know, like been a passenger in my car that day. Would have been exceptional. Would have been an exceptional episode, you know. But again, it would have been reality. This isn't a scripted program. That would have been reality. But I think that that young man has a bright future, and I wanted to let corporate know you got yourself a good one here. You know, you may want to think about, again, management and development, leadership development. He wants to go into finance. He's studying finance. All right, you got a man that's passionate about cars, passionate about mechanics and all of that, passionate about auto parts and advanced auto in particular. And he wants to work on the business side. You know, get him prepped for a role in finance so you can keep him. So think about that. We talk about retention and how, particularly in the fitness industry, there's so much turnover. But think about that. How can you hold on to your people? What leadership and management development roles are not even, they may not even be interested in leadership or management, but what other type of career tracks can you create, or what other ways can you add value to them personally? And also here, before I shift on to my personal surprise that I'm going to share with you, you think about, and I talked about Lawrence, and I'm going to come back to him again when I talk about leadership styles at the beginning of the year, but I want to make a few quick points. If you think about Lawrence and why I've kind of harped on him in relation to this whole concept of servant leadership, their different leadership styles, and just how, when I went into that Rochester Hills Planet Fitness in July of this year, and just saw him cleaning his heart out. I mean, I saw him and I was having flashbacks of Sue. Everybody knows I used to talk about Sue, the cleaning lady at Powerhouse. She's got to have probably 20, 21 years with Powerhouse now, just different locations. But she used to clean that machine. She cared like it was hers. And I just strongly felt I saw that same focus and intensity in Lawrence. And I thought to myself when I saw him, like, this is remarkable. This is great on so many different levels. You got an assistant manager here that is cleaning his heart out, but again, there's so many different ways I can go with this. But I wanted to point out, and now we've learned in the last episode, and this is why I like to study different franchises and different chains, because I learn, I grow. They can all teach me something. We know from my last episode that Blink Fitness, one of our newest entrants here, they're not a new chain, but one of our newest chain entrants here, requires all staff members to clean. Manager all the way down. And I think that is something that is so important. And when I saw Lawrence doing that, when you talk about the letter that I sent to Advanced Auto and how I wanted to, when I think back to that I'm retired writing Planet Fitness member surveys, but when I look back on that season and all the ones I wrote and recognize some people and they absolutely deserved it in different locations and stuff across the country, great. But that season is done. Those are done. Those are retired. But I can definitely tell you, there was no greater urge for me. I felt no greater urge to write a letter like this to Mr. Rondeau, the CEO of Planet Fitness, with a copy of that survey, that PF member survey that I did for Lawrence, as well as a letter like this, highlighting how important that was, how important I felt it was. But now we know that Blink is already doing it. But I really feel from a turnover standpoint, we're going to talk more about this. I don't have time to get into it in this episode, but this servant leadership, how important and how effective that is for organizations. Again, when you have this kind of us versus them, management versus non-management, which the fitness industry definitely has, is a very hugely important in this industry. Huge detriment to the industry. But when you have managers and assistant managers and those in leadership and supervisory roles that are willing to step down, to be servant leaders. All right, he wasn't the only one there that morning. He could have within his management authority, could have said to that I believe it was a young lady that was working with him, hey, go over and hit the floor, go clean, whatever they say. But he had a decision to make. He did it. He cleaned. All right, and that is leadership. A lot of people think leadership is stand somewhere, command and control, and tell everybody and exert your authority. But that's why that servant leadership style is certainly rare, because very few people are willing to do that. And that's why people love shows like Undercover Boss, because they see that kind of stuff. Like, oh, the boss is actually, cleaning the bathroom. It may be a fast food restaurant. The boss is actually, the CEO is actually cleaning the floor, mopping the floor. That just freaks people out. And why? People at home and everywhere else watch that and think, if only my boss or my bosses or the people at the top of my organization or corporation knew what it's really like. All right, so he's a very, very positive representation of that. And Planet, I mean, the turnover challenges at Planet, I mean, you know, I've read about the challenges in the industry and all of that, but I can say Planet, I've spent most of my 25-year fitness journey predominantly in community-oriented gyms. And so Bally Fitness and Novi, that's an outlier. I mean, that was my first commercial gym, Bally Fitness and Novi. That was an outlier. Been there for years and years. Then you had lifetime memberships. So it was just a very stable environment, even though it was corporate. Powerhouse Gym and Novi, owned by the co-founder. That carries a lot of cachet. Virtually no turnover in the 5 years I was there. Just that he does an exceptional job at keeping his people. But that's part of that because of who owns it. All right, and so then Planet Fitness, and when I got to Planet Fitness and Novi, and it just, the turnover was just heartbreaking. Anybody who's had any interaction with HR and me from a leadership development standpoint and a training and development standpoint, I mean, it's just heartbreaking just to see this constant turnover, location after location. And so, and I think when you're talking about stemming the tide, not just at Planet, but in the industry, and that's what I would have written in a letter to the CEO, but you know, in the fitness industry, I don't do that. I don't touch people, I don't do that, there's no favoritism, I don't do that. I just, you know, write the surveys that I used to do, because, you know, every facility potentially had the opportunity to get a survey, so that was more fair in that way. And so, but that's what I would have, you know, Mr. Rundo, this is what I think about this. This is what I think your franchise needs more of. You know, because guess what? If I'm at the front desk, you know, and I'm at Planet, I'm going to be asking my manager, okay, so can you clean right now? Like, I mean, but that's just me. Like, that's my personality. But from a leadership standpoint, I don't have a servant leadership style. You know, my leadership style is charismatic. So for me, I just would have done it, or I would just do it in terms of cleaning and again, going down and just doing everything that I would require my employees to do, because that's just part of my charisma. Like, I want to be, you know, I want to be my people. I want my people saying that I'm real and I'm just like they are. But that's what I would have written. If I would have written a letter to corporate, and I wanted to write a letter so bad because I feel so strongly about that. Because the franchise is just like many other chains, just the turnover challenges is heartbreaking. But now I've experienced it personally. I'm like, wow, this is just rough. You know, this could be one way to stem the tide of that turnover, and Blink has figured that out. You know, kudos to Blink Fitness. Another thing that could help stem the tide here is I close here and move on over, close this kind of, you know, more professional aspect and going into the personal. 360-degree feedback. You know, letting employees, you know, Google it if you've never done it before, but that's a way, again, for your manager to hear from employees, for your employees to hear from managers, maybe just another way for people to recognize, you know, coworkers hearing from coworkers, just getting this feedback, this real-time, you know, hopefully honest and candid feedback to improve. And that way, if there's challenges, if there's other things like that can be addressed and rectified, that can be done. Another thing that certainly other industries do, and that is, you know, more management accountability around employee retention. All right, from a leadership perspective, from a management perspective, a person certainly has a greater likelihood of leading in a very different manager if he or she knows either their annual review or their bonus or even their job depended on their ability to retain people. If there's no accountability and people can just leave and quit at any time, and there's more turnover than a pancake griddle at IHOP on a Saturday morning, then what? Then what? Of course, people are gonna just not care. I mean, not to say not care, that's too strong of a word, but they will care a whole lot more if there's some formal metric, performance-based metric around that. All right, but if somebody's 70-80% turnover in a year, and it happens in the fitness industry all the time, all right, we got to shut this stuff down. We got to start having more accountability around retention. Yeah, you can hire some people. Yeah, you can do some job interviews, but you need to do a better job of hanging on to these people. You know, the industry, that's an abomination, the turnover that occurs in the fitness industry. So we got to do better. We got to do better in this industry, folks. And so that is it. Jim Collins, Good to Great, shared some more thoughts around that. Who's on the bus? Right people in right seats. Wrong people off the bus. Gotta love it. So, gonna kind of put this over here to the side. Move on in here to the personal aspect. So we talk about the who's on the bus. Talk about, this is going to be on a more personal level, and this is the kind of stuff you'd see from me on a stage. Like, this is not Posi-TIPS. This is Rachelle professional speaking, inspiring people type stuff. So never done it like this ever before. Like I said, this is platform type stuff. But when I think about my own life, and I think about, me being on various buses, me being in the right seats, me being in the wrong seats. I mean, I've certainly shared some of those examples from a professional standpoint, wanting to do different things, and then recognizing certainly before it was too late that, this is not going to be a good fit for me. This is not the right seat, and there's a number of different examples, and I've shared with you, I wanted to follow in my dad, who was a Navy officer, my brother's a retired Army officer, was going to fill in, we had a number, particularly on my dad's side, veterans on that side of the family. I was going to join the military, and then those hopes were dashed. What was that? That was my 11th grade year in JROTC, and it just was not a good situation. And, I failed my first inspection, and Master Sergeant, I remember we had to do our very first inspection, and I failed it because I refused to shine my shoes. But the bottom of the line is, just again, going back to that DISC profile, like where I'm a high D, yes, and high D's, serve in the military and do well and all of that. But for me, I want to do my own thing. I don't, I'm asking the question like, well, why can't I wear my own shoes? I want to wear some high heels. I don't want to wear the shoes you tell me I got to wear. I want to wear my hair the way I want to wear my hair the way I want to wear my hair. And if you have that mindset, the military is not for you. With all due respect to I love the military. I love our veterans. I love the armed forces. But what I'm saying is this: it is not the right seat for everyone. I mean, this is true for many different things. I'm very passionate about higher education, but then you often hear people say college isn't for everyone. So what is that? We got to make sure in the course of our lives that we're in the right seat. So, but I recognize in that JROTC class, this is not for me. This is not going to work. They're going to be sending me packing my bags within the first 48 hours of basic training. And you may laugh and be like, no, Rachelle, but she's so sweet and this and that. But no, I want to do my own thing. And that's just who I am. That's just authentic me. So that's not a good situation. When I'm getting told, no, you're not going to do what you want to do. So that's an example. I wanted to be, I was a double major, that I entered college, LSU in Shreveport, as a Spanish major. Okay, I was going to be a translator. Absolutely love foreign languages, absolutely loved it. But I recognized, okay, Rachelle, why don't you just start translating some stuff? And then I recognized, it wasn't enough challenge. And you heard me read the D profile of the DISC profile, like to be challenged. And so for me, it wasn't a big enough challenge, and I was going to be tied down somewhere, translating either verbal or written, and all of that into Spanish. And that is a wonderful thing, a wonderful profession, a wonderful people that want to be on that bus, the translating bus, and that want to be in those seats. But while I'm saying it wasn't the right seat for me, and I recognized I was bored. There wasn't enough challenge. So that's when I made the decision to double major in public relations. A wonderful fit, an absolute wonderful fit. And so when you think about, who's on, when I think about my own life journey and who's been on the bus and hasn't been on the bus and had some wonderful experiences. And I talk about Northwestern a lot. Northwestern gets a lot of airtime. But I had some wonderful professors along the way, both in Miami, graduate school in Miami, as well as LSU in Shreveport before Northwestern. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of these folks, and when we talk about who's on the bus, and just a couple of folks, and there's so many different professors I could highlight here. But Dr. Linda K. Martin, this was actually me and her, years. I was a senior in college then, and she was my professor of public relations. And so she taught me so much, and just so many valuable lessons. And there's so many wonderful people that have been on my bus, my metaphorical bus, that have shaped me into the person that I am today, the person that is sitting here before you. And I think about one of the best lessons that she taught me that I honor to this day, folks, and that is comport yourself. Again, talking to PR majors, public relations majors, always comport yourself as if your behaviors, your actions were going to be reported in detail on the front page of the New York Times. And I remember thinking like, okay, yeah, listening to that, I don't have any criminal bent or criminal, bent or leanings or anything like that. So I just kind of, oh yeah, whatever. But then you recognize how important that is. Everything that you do, Your operations of your facility are facilities. These facilities that get reported and get these national headlines in athletic business or club industry for shutting down, for taking folks' money, signing up for memberships, knowing good and well they're about to close in 3 days. Okay? And what happens? It ends up getting reported on all these sports and athletic and fitness, websites. All right. So when I think about my own behavior, and I'm not perfect, and by any stretch of the imagination, but I think about just the guiding light and that guiding principle that I honor to this day. My journalism professor, I took 3 journalism classes, and I was like, you know what, and I had a subsequent adjunct instructor at LSU Shreveport, Josie Jarzabek. She was a TV station producer at Channel 12. And so Rachelle, I took a class with her. She created a new class in TV production. Rachelle, you make a great anchor. You make a great anchor. Okay, so she used to work with me, in terms of just whatever, reading a teleprompter and just all of that. And I think about those lessons that she taught me and how it's shaped me for doing these episodes. I mean, it's very different speaking on a stage in front of people or in a group in a training situation versus this format. But just great lessons from Josie Jarzabek. John Tabor, may he rest in peace, my journalism professor. And those 3 classes, I hated it because it was fact-based. It was okay, who, where, the 5 W's, this is how you write the story, this is the lead, and this and that. I did far better in opinion writing and feature writing. And I'm very opinionated. But I recognize, but looking back in those lessons, and I think back to John Tabor, Professor Tabor's lessons, though, of being objective, acting like you're standing out on the sidelines, which I strive to do, even in these episodes, particularly in the fitness industry. All right, as a consultant, as I'm coming in as a trainer, I can't go in favoring people, sitting in a training class, and other people sense that. Okay, being objective, being fact-based. I'm very anal about, what I say and all of that, and reporting facts and having backup information, citing sources, and just all of that kind of stuff. And I think about these early lessons. Dr. Charlene Hanford, at the time retired now, one of the toughest speech professors in the state of Louisiana. All right, she was my mentor for 12 years. Just a wonderful impact on my life, wonderful lessons from a public speaking standpoint. Things such as don't be reckless in your speech. Cite your sources. Yeah, you're smart. You don't need to prove to everybody else how smart you are. You cite your sources. Don't be reckless in your speech. All right. If you're getting up to speak somewhere and people are already, your credibility has been challenged or been shattered in some way. And people are assumed that you're lying even before you open your mouth, and all you do is lie and all of this and that. You have failed. Your credibility as a speaker, as a trainer, is so important. That credibility issue. So you hone that, you develop that. Don't you ever lose sight of that. And I so honor her and I so respect her and the impact that she had on my life, and just recognizing, Rachelle, you've got potential. You're going to be a speaker. You're going to be great. And she just infused me with such confidence, just wonderful. There's another picture of the same dinner meeting that we had for the Public Relations Student Society of America, Dr. Linda K. Martin. So just wonderful, folks. And so, yes, marketing, I shared that example about, General Mills, did my internship there, marketing, I'd gone to Northwestern. Yes, I'm going to be this. It is so funny. I look back now and I used to tell all my classmates, and I was going to be this big SVP of a top CPG or consumer packaged goods firm, and that was going to be it, and this and that. And yes, was all ready to go. Got this internship at General Mills, one of the top marketing companies then, and is still even now. And I said, yeah, this is it. I'm getting set up for success right here. And so, folks, that summer internship I did before accepting the full-time offer, these assessment discs, Myers-Briggs, they do those. These major companies do that. They're very big on screening out they want the right people on the bus, and they want the right people in the right seats. And I remember I was doing my internship, had multiple different types of projects, so the variety of the projects was great, and this and that. And then Dr. Bob Bender. I had done my assessment, the assessment, and Dr. Bob Bender called me and said, you know what, how you doing, Miss Smith? Oh, I'm doing great. Yeah, the summer's going wonderful, enjoying all these projects. And then Dr. Bender shares the news with me and said, Rachelle, I will never forget this for as long as I live. Rachelle, but it is such a powerful teaching moment. Rachelle, I've been doing this, he's a psychologist, so he read the results and interpret the results and determine fit and all of that for, organizational, fit and all of that. So I've been doing this for 20 years, and I'm looking at your profile results, and I'm telling you, you need to be in sales. And folks, again, I had gone on this life path, and I was going to be this big wig SVP of marketing, and this was not in line with what this man was telling me. But how many times have you yourself faced the same thing? All right. How many times in life do people know they're not necessarily on the right path? There's not a good fit. How many people do we have that don't need to be on the fitness industry bus? All right, but it pays the bills, or they don't want to go through the trouble to find another job. Okay, he was courageous enough to tell me that, but I was unwilling to hear it. So I just blew it off. Like, oh yeah, that's great. He's telling you need to be in sales. You need to be out in the field in front of customers. He saw it. Again, I can look at that, that D profile, that dominant profile that does well in sales and all of this and that. Okay, he saw it. I didn't see it. All right, but ultimately, and that's what moved me to Detroit. I, moved to Detroit, got my first job in pharmaceutical sales and then biotech sales. And I've got a few pictures here I want to close this episode out with. But folks, a wonderful decision. I mean, and I wrote him a number of years after, 3 or 4 years after I moved to Detroit, and said, Dr. Bender sent that letter to Minnesota. I just want to let you know, you were so right. I love sales. I love sales. All right, I love sales. All right, so sometimes in life, we got to admit that we're not really in the right seat. And yes, my marketing knowledge, absolutely. Still useful, still use it in a consulting capacity, absolutely. So it's not like it was wasted time. And my Northwestern experience was just, I was always a presenter. I was in group projects. I was always presenting. So that was preparation for what I'm doing now. I've been, my first 7 years old, speaking in front of the congregation at Greater Mount Olive Missionary Baptist Church in Gulfport, Mississippi. That's when I first started speaking. All right, my speech professor, Dr. Charlene Hanford, all right, mentored me for 12 years. So I see speaking woven throughout my life. Get to graduate school at Northwestern. Rachelle, we want you to present. Rachelle, you want you to present. We want you to present. All right, so nothing is ever wasted time, folks. We can't look, particularly in our professional lives, and say, if I go in a different direction, I'm going to look like a failure. I'm going to look like I didn't know what I was doing, or I spent all this money pursuing something and it didn't work out. Folks, we've got to be honest. We've got to be real with ourselves, even if that means going in a different direction, getting off the bus, getting into a different seat. Perhaps you could stay on the same company bus or facilities bus or fitness change bus, but perhaps you need to be in a different seat. All right. So think long and hard about that. I just think that holds so many people back. That fear of being wrong. What are people going to say? Who cares? But it's taken me a lot of years to feel like, who cares? Trust me. All right. Because initially my thought was, here I am at Northwestern. I'm spending all this money in graduate school. Here I am getting set up for marketing success. And this man is telling me you need to be in sales. Did I get 2 graduate degrees so I can work in sales? Absolutely. At the end of the day, absolutely. And I would not trade it for anything in the world. Those experiences were remarkable. And so I want to touch upon just my transition here into sales. And so I want to quickly, oh my gosh, I got so many examples here. And that's why I'm saying this. I never do this on these episodes. This is pure Rachelle professional speaking type material here, folks. So never done it on this episode before. So I want to show you. So this was here when I joined Novartis Pharmaceuticals here, and I lived in Dearborn at the time. And so this was actually our training class at the University of Arizona. And so, we had our first training in New Jersey, but then we had more specialized training, a 3-week training in Tucson, Arizona. So they took us to the University of Arizona Medical Center, and so we wore white lab coats. And here I am in my white lab coat, looking all official there. This was our West Coast training team. This was Nanette Timby. She was Associate Director of West Training. This was Doug Wolfley. He was a Director of Training for the West region. And of course, this was me. And this is a training manager. I can't remember what his name is. But these, I won a Tiger Award at this particular Phase 2 sales training, and just wonderful folks. But continue to reinforce, like, Rachelle, you need to be here. You need to be here in sales. You were cut out for this. This is a very good fit for you. All right, the Rachelle that was in 7th grade in Biloxi, Mississippi, selling Twix. You remember the boxes with Twix and the box of blow pops that they sell at Sam's. I used to sell those, and just did extremely well until somebody ratted me out. And the principal called my parents and told them I couldn't sell candy in school anymore. But again, that sales has been woven through my life. All right, this is me, and I know it's tough to see, but this is me at my first district sales meeting in Detroit. This lady right here was my very first sales manager, Gina Denise Moyer. These are colleagues at the time. We were at our very first sales meeting, and we were at the former Dearborn Hyatt, which I actually lived in the apartments right next door. This here is a picture of me, and there's Jim Howard. I've written about Jim Howard, talked about Jim Howard. Jim Howard spent some time in the Navy, but he is a retired now, registered pharmacist. He had been with Novartis for about 20 years at the time. He'd been a long time, 20, maybe 25 at the time. He ultimately retired, but Jim Howard was a very big champion, great mentor of mine. I used to role play with Jim, and I remember he was tough, and he used to say, Rachelle, you cannot get in front of doctors. You gotta know your stuff. You gotta know your stuff. And so he really, in terms of developing my initial confidence in medical sales, just phenomenal, just phenomenal. And this was actually a note that he gave me at a subsequent district. We used to have them once a quarter, and I just want to read this to you quickly. God and your work ethic have special positions of power awaiting you down the road of your life. This job will just be another entry on your impressive resume. You are definitely on the fast track because of your skills, work ethic, and willingness to sacrifice other choices. So never allow any job to wear you down. You are designated for much bigger and better things. So this is actually in my office, and I keep that hanging in my office, but just wanted to show that to you from a training. Yes, speaking and training, often synonymous, but they're actually not. There's some differences. And so when I was with Novartis, I showed you Gina Moyer, may she rest in peace, my first district sales manager. And so in typical Rachelle fashion, when I think about the course of my life, and part of that is just that sales, that kind of sales personality, the ability to be assertive and to ask for things. I'm not afraid of rejection. I'm not afraid of people saying no. So in the course of my life, whether it was the 7th grader in Biloxi, charging 50 cents for blow pops, which would probably cost me 5 cents each. I netted a nice profit, folks. I had a thriving business till it was shut down by the principal. But I've always been willing to ask, whether, I was at LSU in Shreveport, and like I said, I was a Spanish major initially. And even later when I was a senior and I was a double major in Spanish and Public Relations, one of the adjunct Spanish faculty, Sandra Watkins, she married a nice man from Louisiana, but she was originally from Venezuela. And so I found out, she was from Venezuela. I had never had her class before, and I literally touched base with her and said, you know what? I have never been to a Spanish-speaking country. I would love to go visit your family in Venezuela for a couple weeks. And she said yes. So that was my first international trip by myself. Went to Venezuela, went to Guiria, and also went to Caracas. And so had a wonderful time in Venezuela. But folks, you gotta ask. You can't be afraid to ask, all right? And so looking at my Novartis career, getting back to that, my general manager, my district manager, Gina Moyer, I said, Gina, I really want to get some experience in training. See, I even felt it then. What kind of experiences can I get? And so, because sales training is very, very big. And so I asked her, I said, okay, so I just, brand new, folks, I'd only been a rep for a year. All right, so still pretty new in the industry. And I said, Gina, I have reached out to Brian Lebo, who was the training director for the Cleveland, Ohio region. I've reached out to him, and he's willing to let me come for a week and serve as a breakout leader, as a trainer for brand new sales representatives. But the difference is, folks, his division sold different products than mine, or different medications than mine. So I had to work with Jim Howard, my mentor, to quickly learn and study the package inserts of 3 different medications that I did not sell, that I had not known anything about before. But anyway, Jim prepped me, I worked my tail off, and I was able to go and serve as a week. And I look back, this is one of the anonymous, the anonymous surveys that I got back, breakout leader feedback. And so let me just read, I got all 5 on coaching skills, product knowledge, program agenda, professionalism, and at the bottom it says other comments. I want to read this for you quickly. What can I say other than my group was blessed to have such a dynamic leader as Rachelle? She is the consummate professional. Her patience and insights will make me a better rep and person. Thanks for sharing her with all of us. Training. new representatives, they didn't have a clue that I didn't even sell those medications that I was training them on. So, but I asked Gina, let me do this. I want to get this experience. That was a wonderful experience. Transitioning here on into my biotech sales. Oh wait, before I do that, forgot about this picture. So this was my phase 1 sales training class in New Jersey. So this is Florham Park, New Jersey, Novartis Pharmaceuticals. So this was reps from across the country in all different sales divisions. And you see me here, the woman in red, bam. See me, the woman in red. And so had a wonderful time and just, wanted to share that. But so moving on into biotech sales here, is this episode is about to be over. So you can see me here joined cardiovascular therapeutics. And this right here was at our national launch meeting in Scottsdale, Arizona. There you see me in the back wearing one of my infamous shawls. Rachelle is always cold in meetings. Rachelle still sports those shawls, but just a wonderful experience, a wonderful team. Right there in the middle is Shannon Rafferty, Shannon Rafferty Sanders now, and she was our division sales manager. So anyway, at that time, I had the Ann Arbor territory all the way west. And then I got, a year later, we had a restructuring, and then that's when I got, Detroit, and I went all the way east to Port Huron and way north. So we had, very big territories, but we were responsible, our team was responsible for the state of Michigan. But wonderful, wonderful experience. Same launch meeting, you have our manager, Shannon Rafferty, or Shannon Sanders at the time, and Lauren Rich. Lauren Rich was so awesome. I used to spend Passover with her family, and she had some twins, and they were just great experiences. But again, I'm always open. I'm always exposing myself to new things and experiences, and she honored that. Rachelle, come spend Passover with our family, and it just used to be wonderful. And so, folks, I'm going to wrap this up by just saying, think about your life. Think about your journey. Nothing is ever wasted. A lot of people, I wasted 5 years doing this, or I wasted. You may decide, hey, you know what, I don't want to be on, and it happens all the time. I don't want to be on this fitness bus. This is not a right seat for me. I initially started out on this fitness journey. Somebody else was maybe thinking this, just trying to make money, trying to get paid. I heard some of these fitness franchises were great investments and all of this and that, but my heart's not in it. Happens regularly. People make that decision. They sell their franchises, whatever. Some inadvertently just shut down and never reopen. But it's so important. We want to be authentic, folks. We want to be real. All right. I can't get on here and tell you to do something I'm not doing myself. All right. I've been, you may look at me now and, oh my gosh, Rachelle really has it together. No, I'm imperfect just like everyone else. And I've had my twists and turns. I've been in some wrong seats. All right. I've been on some wrong buses. But the difference is I'm very quick to shift gears. I'm very quick to get on a different bus or to realize the seat isn't working for me. I got to move on. All right. So it's so important for you. We've all got to recognize in the spirit of Jim Collins. Okay, to turn over in the fitness industry, not just the fitness industry, but other industries too. We're just retail in general overall. All right, Walmart. I just see Walmart constantly hiring people, and I'm like, gosh, you guys can't keep people. And so that's bad on so many levels, and we got to spend some more time working on accountability in terms of retention. It's always great to get people on the bus, but if you can't keep people on the bus, what's the point? So folks, that's all I have for you today. This has been a great series. I thank you so much for your time. And remember, until the next time, I am positively passionate about your fitness, life, and success. Make it a great day.